Hello. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is André Sánchez. I am a volunteer with Latino Outdoors, he, him, el pronouns, and I volunteer with Latino Outdoors Fresno. I'm one of the outings leaders and the regional program coordinator, and I'm fortunate enough to have the opportunity to have a conversation today with Leonel. Leonel, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Leonel Arguello. I'm the program manager for resource management and science for Redwood National State Parks up in the far northwestern corner of California. I've been in this job. I've been at Redwood National State Parks for 33 years now. My career, as it were. And yeah, glad to be here talking with you, Andre.
Thank you. Yeah, before we go on, I just want to point out that, today is arguably the last date of Latinx, Latino Heritage Month. So just wanted to, throw that pitch out there. But just because it's the last date on paper doesn't mean that we don't get to celebrate our culture, our cultura, our history beyond this date. So, just folks keep that in mind. But yeah, I'll kind of just go from there. Leonel, I don't know. Just want to do a quick check-in with you. How are you feeling? How's your week been going? How's your Friday going? Any fun plans for the weekend?
No, the week's been fine. I just got back recently with my wife from a vacation to visit a brother up in who lives in Idaho. Just recently moved from Santa Rosa up to Idaho. Had my daughter and my grandkids come over, and my other brother and his two daughters came up and spent some time looking at that part of the world of Idaho. Went to Craters of the Moon National Preserve, up to Grand Tetons and Yellowstone National Park. It was a really nice vacation. Went outdoors, right? It's all about being outdoors. So you got to see the world and you got to get out there. And when the opportunity, arises, so it was fun. So I'm just kind of slotting back into work, finishing out the work week. It's great up here, so we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I've had the fortune of going out to Craters of the Moon myself. It was a very quick trip a couple years ago, but cool landscape. Definitely, well named. Definitely feels very, moon landscape-esque. Some crazy volcanic, rock. Beautiful though.
Yeah, it's the first time I'd been there. The park is well run. And the opportunity to do and look at the all of the visitor use areas where they have the caves and the little cinder cones. It's all right there. It's easy to get to, and it reminded me. I spent a little bit of time on a detail to Hawaii, the Big Island of Hawaii, and the whole western side of the Big Island is a lot of it's just lava, and there was just a lot of all of that similarity of open lava land, and it was a fun trip there. I hope to get back up there again.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I need to make my way up to Idaho a little bit more again. I've only done it one real time. But yeah, it's a pretty awesome spot. Hopefully I can get on the Columbia or, do something out more in the Saltooth. So we'll see.
The other thing that was part of that trip was a lot of hot springs. So.
Oh, really? There you go.
Great hot springs up in Idaho. It's just, a little. I don't think I could ever move to Idaho. It's not a place that I think I would want to move. A little bit too far north. A little bit too cold for me. Not that I live in the bottom part of California, because I don't, but their winters there are pretty rough. So I think I'm pretty happy where I'm at here.
That resonates with me. I don't think I could be in Idaho for very long myself.
But do visit. For those out there listening, visit, because it's a beautiful state. It's got lots of recreational opportunities and opportunity to be in that part of the world. It's got access to Yellowstone and Grand Tetons. A little further north is on the Montana side is Glacier National Park. There's a whole lot of smaller units nearby. It's really a fantastic recreational opportunity.
Definitely. Yeah, and if anything, kind of tying in the hot springs topic real quick, I, even though I was fortunate to, recreate in, your neck of the woods, in the Redwoods, the state national parks, are there any hot springs out that way? I don't know. I figured there wouldn't be, but I don't know.
If there were, I've lived here for 40 years. If there were, I've missed out. But as far as I can tell, there no hot springs. There's a place in Ukiah, a couple hours south, and then really you got to get into Oregon before you get some hot springs. And of course, if you go from here, so Arcata, Eureka area, if you go east on Highway 299 to the other side of California, near the Nevada border, there's some hot springs out there as well.
Gotcha.
Just not here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That would be nice in the old growth redwood and have some hot springs. That'd be actually pretty nice.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, actually, kind of going off of that, one of the questions I wanted to ask, with respect to the Redwood and State National Parks as a whole, it's, what's one of your favorite things to share about, that area, whether it's a specific tree, a specific fact, specific historical, element, just what is your favorite thing to share about it, out of the, many years that you've been there or that you've come to learn?
Yeah. God, it's a big open-ended question. And there's so many things I've done since I moved here in 1983 and experienced. And I've been at this park since 1988. I think in general, I'll just start from the big, which is just being in the redwoods is pretty special. The Redwood Range goes all the way down towards a little south of Santa Cruz, and it kind of terminates on the north end up here, a little bit into Southwest Oregon. So, for folks that have the opportunity to get to the redwoods, it is a really special place where you can really get in touch with your surroundings. Whether you want to see big trees, whether you want to see wildlife, whether you want to hear birds or see birds, or you want to look at the small creatures in the world, when you get out into a park like up here, Redwood National State Parks, you can see it all. You can see wild rivers. You can see grassy, bald hills where you get a whole different sense of ecology and ecosystems than the closed-in redwood forest. And then you've got that wild coastline, 37 miles of pure wild coastline. Really quiet. You can walk long stretches of the beach and not see anyone, or maybe run into one other person. It's just, I think that's the beauty and what I would convey primarily to folks who might be listening is the opportunity to recreate up here and to be outdoors, to be in a place and really get to know it and see it from the small, beautiful things to the real, obviously, macro big things like, the trees, the elk, bear. You can't get away from not seeing bear. If you get out of the car and walk some of the trails, you're going to see some bear, because there's just lots of bear up in this part of the world. And don't be afraid. It's all good. So anyway, that would be how I would explain or express some of the beauty of up here in the North Coast.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, actually, kind of with that said, like I said, I've had the fortune of, living in the greater area, in the Humboldt, coast. So I did get to visit a couple of times. And most recently, I had the fortune of interacting with you in person, during a Latino Outdoors event. Would you mind talking a little bit about, the Redwood Rising program, and, informing folks of what that is and what that looks like?
So I just regaled you guys with like how beautiful it is and how wonderful it is to come up here and recreate, and that's all well and true. But there's our park has got a lot of land that the National Park Service and California State Parks have acquired that were acquired after logging, and the logging that occurred left the land in a place where we have management. And having to do management include really dense forests that are in kind of bad shape. So we recognize this as park managers. We want to go in and in order for to treat these lands, in order to get them back into a trajectory of growth where they can become old growth again. So Redwoods Rising is a collaborative that was established a few years ago between the National Park Service, California State Parks, and Save the Redwoods League to identify in total about 70,000 acres of land that needs restoration in our park. So we're not all pristine, we're not all old growth. there are plant lands that are just degraded and are not meeting the mission of the Park Services, which is to restore lands, to maintain lands in as best condition as possible. And this collaborative has identified these, a subset of those acres, specifically 34,000 acres, to do some work right now. And that's what Redwood Rising is doing. We're raising money. We're identifying work, whether it's forestry related thinning, or it's removing old logging roads that are failing into creeks and creating landslides that end up in streams and choking out habitat for the salmon, or if it's improving the streams by putting in wood, acting like beavers on the landscape, putting in wood to help slow the velocity of streams so that fish that are in the streams have a place to take refuge during the winter storms, because it rains cats and dogs up here in the winter. And we're hoping for a big rain year, right? We're all hoping for a big rain year. We need to catch up. It's pretty bad out there.
Definitely.
So the Redwoods Rising is really just it's our way to restore landscapes, and it's really fulfilling work. It's really something that I just, Latino Outdoors is all about getting outdoors and really getting people out there. And I just want to plug in that if you have a knack or an energy or an enthusiasm for being outdoors and want to work for a public agency, consider being some sort of a ecologist or biologist, where you can actually do restoration. National Park Service is a lot of it is about restoration, not just recreation. And it's so fulfilling. I've been doing it for 33 years now, doing restoration. That's been my career, and it's just a really fulfilling career. I've been blessed and lucky to have the work that I've done here with the people that I work with over the many years.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, on that last note, you mentioning some of your trajectory of your career path. Do you mind going a little bit more into that? And then if you don't mind, I'll kind of add, my 2 cents on my path as well after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to make sure you start talking, because I'm.
It's fine. We're chatting.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I started my career as a seasonal employee. I was a GS3 seasonal employee making barely above minimum wage, and guess where you start? And I was going to school, and the park, Redwood National Park, at that point, they offered me the opportunity to enter in what is now called Pathways. Back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, it was called the co-op program. And so as a student, I entered into an agreement with HSU and the National Park, Redwood. And I promised to do research as a master's student, because I was just graduating with my bachelor's in science. And I would do a research project in the park, and they would end up giving me a permanent job at the end. Now, they said anywhere in the Park Service. At the time, that was the Western region. But so I had no intention to stay. In fact, I really didn't intend to stay in Humboldt County. It's a pretty small county with a small population, as you know, André. It's remote. We're remote up here, and there's not a lot of connection. We're hours away from, the Bay Area, so to speak, and even further up to Portland. So I didn't intend to stay. I really didn't. But I got through my thesis. I got through my master's, and there was a job opening at the park as a botanist, which is what I was studying. I was studying botany, doing a research on the impact of prescribed fire on native plants, which was a cool project. I really enjoyed it. At the end, this position opened up at Redwood, and they wanted me in, and I slotted right in. I stepped right into the role, and a bit of luck, right? It's a bit about setting yourself up and doing the best you can personally. But then, as with all things, it's about timing and taking that opportunity when it presents itself and jumping at the opportunities to move up and move in. And so that's what I did, and I've been here at Redwood ever since. And I've kind of, as people have moved on up above, I kind of moved up with it, and that's just been my career ladder all the way through. And here I am now, the program manager for the Resource Management and Science Division, which I never thought I would ever get to, but here I am. And I'm not done yet. I got more work to do. So, so that's and that's just been my story. I had two daughters along the way, raised them. They moved on. Now they provided me with grandkids. You know, it's just been a great run here in Humboldt. A bit isolating, but still a great run. Yeah. What about?
Definitely. Yeah. No. Yeah. So I'll present the question that I was thinking of next first, and then I'll briefly give my story. Just that way I don't forget the question. But that way you're kind of mulling on it. What kind of inspired you to pursue this career
Yeah.
choice and to study what you studied? I guess
Well,
I'll kind of work. Yeah. Go ahead.
all right, I'll be real honest with everyone. I didn't start out really coming to study science when I came here to Humboldt. I got recruited to play basketball. I was a pretty good ball player. I got recruited to play at Humboldt State, right? And I did for a couple of years, but I just got tired of all the practices. I just didn't want to go through it anymore. And I looked around. I was like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to study? And what am I going to do at Humboldt so I could finish out my Humboldt career? And there was a professor that just got me kind of really excited about being out and looking at plants. And it wasn't just the plants, right? Because you would say, well, that's kind of boring, but it was about being outdoors. He would schedule field classes and field trips out into places that I've never been. I grew up in San Francisco. I grew up in the inner city of San Francisco and down in San Jose in high school. I didn't spend a lot of time outdoors. I didn't know much about the national parks until Humboldt State and with this class, and it just got me hooked on being outdoors and studying plants. And then the opportunity came after a couple years. The opportunity came to get a seasonal job at this park, and doing botany work, vegetation management work. All those linkages just kind of lined up, and I like I said earlier, I jumped at the chance, knowing that we'll see where it goes. I was 18, 19, 20, I was in that age range, and I had my whole life in front of me. And so I just roll the dice and see what happens. and here I am. I'm still here, and it's been a real positive experience for me. And that's what's really got me excited. It was initially just being outside, right? Being able to go outdoors and not just, have an interior office job like I do now. Unfortunately, as a supervisor, now I'm indoors most of the time. So it's sad. But my career arc has been the love of being outdoors is what's got me involved in this. And I just, up here, I don't see a lot of Latinos in that career field, and I would love to see more. And a part of that is just where I am. I'm up in Northwest California. It's just not a lot of diversity up here. And so there might be others in other places as you move into other parts of the park service. But I'd love to see more. I'd love to see more people of color, regardless of your ethnicity, with the park service.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no, I totally agree with all of that, and thank you for sharing your story and your part of your inspiration. Actually, I'll ask a couple more questions because I think it'll kind of all tie in for my part of my life story, if you will. But you mentioned you grew up, in the innermost parts of San Francisco and San Jose. That said, can you recall what might be one of your earliest memories of so-called like public lands, particularly a federal public land, or did you not get that opportunity until you went up to Humboldt and started taking those classes?
I've been writing down kind of my for Latino Outdoors for a blog. I was kind of writing down just jotting down my history, and I started asking myself that very question: when did I really connect or become aware of national parks? And it really didn't happen, sadly, until high school and late high school. When I went camping, two brothers and I, and we went up and camping up over through Yosemite, up over through Tuolumne Pass and down towards Lee Vining and Mono Lake. There's a campground just above that. And that was my first understanding of national parks. And here already in high school, I grew up in Noe Valley in San Francisco, which is right kind of in the middle of the city, right below Twin Peaks. And then we moved down to San Jose, and I went to a high school down there, and I just didn't, our family just didn't have that passion for the outdoors. So I had to find that passion, and I found it. I found it basically when I came up to Humboldt, but I didn't know about it throughout those first, 16 years of my life. I didn't have a sense of camping. I knew car camping and being outside was cool, but it wasn't. I didn't. We didn't go. My mother was not about going camping. That was not her thing, man. It was not on our plate. I remember as a little kid, our family trips would be Guerneville and stay in little cabins and hang out by the river and all that. And that's all redwoods too, but we were in town. We're in Guerneville. And this was in the early 70s. And, that was cool. I went to 1 week camp with my brother, a CYO camp, a youth, the youth organization. And it was out north in Sonoma County as well. That's it. That's all I had. And it's a weird way. It's to have a career with the Park Service, but not know about it growing up. And I think that's the problem, is that we need to get people not only aware, but just hooked on being outside and getting outside.
Definitely. Yeah, no. And that, I think, resonates with so many different people, honestly. I know a close family friend of mine, one of my friends, I'll say, we had a program that we helped put together, or we had collaboration, with folks here in Yosemite. And, it's a common narrative for residents of the San Joaquin Valley, here in Fresno, who literally have the backdrop of the Sierras, who've never gone up to Yosemite or to even, the Sierra National Forest. And this individual, I was fortunate. I'm going to say I was fortunate to offer this opportunity, to them so that they could experience it for the first time, and they were 21 years old and they finally got the opportunity to go, at 21, and they grew up in Fresno, they could see the Sierras,
Yeah. And, and sort of like, and it's amazing to think that, but it's also every day we should be encouraging folks from different backgrounds to get out in the outdoors. But it really doesn't matter when you start walking, right? Does it really matter as a baby when you start walking? No, in the end, or when you're no longer in diapers. And I'm doing this because I have grandkids, so it's on my head. When they, parents always say, "Oh, my child isn't walking yet." Well, a year after they start walking, you're not even going to care when they started walking, because it doesn't matter. And so for all of us that are like, have the opportunity to encourage folks who may not know about the outdoors, we should just, whether they're 15, 20, 25, or 50, it doesn't matter. What matters is getting outside and appreciating the outdoors for what it is. The opportunity to recreate and to find that connection is really important. Because we can lose that if all we do is stay in the city. If our understanding of parks is just the park down the street, where you hang out, which is what it was for me growing up in the city. It was all about the city parks, not national parks or state parks. But getting them outside to the bigger world is really important, and I'm all about it.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I agree with that. At the end of the day, is just trying to have people connect, as you mentioned. And for me personally, kind of given my career trajectory and my personal interest and passion, is getting people to be good stewards when they're outside, because that kind of is the whole, opportunity that I've been able to collaborate on my Latino Outdoors front, and, through my work with the organization that I do work with, Cal Wild. And it's like, how do you get people to advocate for public lands? Well, you get them out there, and that's like the thing I've been more vocal about. And so that said, I know I'm very privileged and had the opportunity to start going to, some of these places, at an earlier age than some folks. My late uncle is the one that actually, the memory that it sticks out to me the most. And I think I even referenced it in my bio, maybe not verbatim to the story, but, the reference of my uncle taking us to Yosemite, me and my older two siblings at the time, and my grandmother. And that memory specifically sticks out the most to me. And ever since then, that, I don't even know how old I was. I was for sure less than 10. I'll say that much. Yeah. But that kind of was the fundamental core part for me to realize I want to be here. I want to work in these places. And I had the fortune of eventually working, as a biological technician with Yosemite for, a couple different summers. So I understand the Park Service element of things a little bit. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, it's just trying to get people to go outside, regardless of when they start, and just build that connection and have that deeper passion and love for being stewards, as I mentioned.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you started your first experience was way before mine. My first park experience was, like I said, through Tuolumne Meadows. I think I was, 16 or something like that. And actually camping in a national park, not until I had already started working for the park, really, when it came right down to it. But whenever it happens, and that's what we should be focused on, is just making it happen for folks, and having people who then can develop a passion for the outdoors, and working for resource agencies, whether it's public or non-governmental agencies, it doesn't, or organizations, it don't matter, but working for the outdoors, because the more representation of this country's population and demographics that we can get focused on the outdoors, the better the recreational opportunities that will exist for people. Right now, when I went to Yellowstone and Grand, very few people of color, a few families that I could see, but very few. And I think we need the workforce to kind of demonstrate to the visiting public that it's okay and it's safe to be outside, and it's actually a wonderful thing to be outdoors and to experience some of the beauty that parks have to offer. And for those that want to work for the Park Services, whether it's state or national or whatever, God, there's opportunities. I've had in my career the opportunity to do wildland firefighting. I don't know if you have, Andre, as a technician. Yeah. And that was an exciting part. First 12 years of my career was doing collateral duty firefighting, and seeing how that world is when you're on the front lines battling fire. And then that got old and difficult, so I moved into prescribed fire, and then within the park doing a lot of prescribed fire. So you just have these opportunities if you can find to really do different things within parks. You don't have to be a biologist. There's just a lot of different opportunities.
Definitely. No, yeah, thank you for that, because I'm actually glad you kind of shared a lot of those details, because I was about to actually ask, like you were mentioning, making it happen for folks. What are some ways to make it happen? And I think you covered that pretty well.
Yeah.
In terms of other ways that the National Park Service, particularly, the one that you're familiar with, your home park, what are some of those ways that they're making it happen? Whether it is through, doing work through Redwood Rising, or or are there other internship programs, whether it is with your park or other ones, like I said?
Yeah, so we partner, and I know we're running close to time. We got 2 minutes here. So our park, the National Park and California State Parks, works together, and we have our abilities to hire interns from the local universities. We hire volunteers. We get people through Redwood Rising, that collaborative. There's a lot of ways to try to get in with parks. I do suggest volunteering if all other ways to get in with parks are closed for whatever reason. Try volunteering if you can afford it. If you can afford to hang out in a park, and even if it's a month or two, just to get your foot in the door, I certainly would recommend it. I know it's difficult and challenging, but keep trying. And certainly being in school helps. Being in college, getting a degree helps a lot, depending on what field you want to go into. It's not required. I'm not suggesting that it's required, because you could certainly get in with the Park Service without a degree. That's not an issue, but it helps in certain fields. It helps. And that's kind of a quick summation, because I know we've got less than a minute left here.
Definitely. Yeah. And I want to honor your time. I know, I don't think it'll cut us off immediately, but I think one last thing I wanted to quickly, wrap up with is, what brings you joy in terms of like the outdoors, And I know it's kind of like an open, ended question, but what brings you joy?
Yeah, it is an open-ended question. I've had this conversation in different ways with folks, my wife and my brothers recently. I think it's just being in the moment. When you're outdoors, you're not thinking about your plans for next week, your work, your whatever might be happening in your life at that point. You're in the moment. because that to me is the most enjoyable part about being in the outdoors. And when I say in the moment, it could be in the moment looking at the smallest little wildflower, or it could be looking at a bear staring at you in the face from 50 yards away. But whatever it is, it's being at that place in time, recognizing it and enjoying it and letting it linger. And that gives me the most joy. That gives me, it's not a particular thing. It's a feeling. It's it's hard to describe, but it's something that I think if you get outdoors and you just slow down and, we put these damn things away and, you know, you just, everything can slow down for you and you could really just enjoy that time and space wherever it happens to be. And it doesn't have to be a great national park like Yosemite or Redwood National. It could be anywhere where you find yourself outdoors and away from the humdrum of life. And that to me is what has brought me joy. That's what sustained me at this park and throughout my career. Are those, like I said earlier, I'm in the office more often now, but when I do get out in the field, I take that time to slow down and just listen. And it's always been somewhat of it helps recenter me a lot. And it's really a positive thing.
Definitely. No, yeah, thank you. And I think for me, I'll just quickly tie it in. I think the part that you mentioned of it, lingering, that's the thing, that I'll just briefly say. For me, it's that lingering feeling in spiritual rejuvenation, mental rejuvenation. It's, yeah. Well, awesome. Like I said, I want to honor your time. I know we're a minute over now, but Leonel, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I really appreciate it. Particularly again because today is the last day of Latinx Heritage Month,
right.
And it's been an honor to honestly have this conversation with you, and I'm really glad I was able to interact with you in person. With the opportunity that I did.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and through Latino Outdoors, and happy to do it again and maybe cover some other subjects if that opportunity arises. But for those folks that are out there, get out to your parks, man. Get out on the ground, get outside, and go enjoy the outdoors. It's a wonderful thing. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Okay. Ciao.